Okay. Um, Hello, YouTube people and others who may not be YouTube people. Thanks for joining. Okay. Take a little pause for some sound. All right. A nice breath and just kind of pause and be here. So, I don't know why, but I got kind of excited and decided to do a video way out of my norm, time wise. Okay, so tonight or today's video, this evening's video, is about codes that we see everywhere. And a lot of things have happened recently that I think are pretty obvious, and things that I've heard message wise from the planet. And um, some theories that I've come up with. Um, okay, so most recently we've had today. Well, I'll get to today. Most recently, I don't really watch the news, but I watch Gematria News Effects here and there, and I watch the news via The Hill on YouTube. I don't really watch the news because I find it extremely depressing, and mostly there's nothing we can do about it. And even if you point out that there's something we can do about it, I don't think people really believe the big spell that's going on. So, part of the big spell I think was created so recently is the Georgia Guidestones that were recently, first they were bombed and then they were destroyed. Also, they were concrete, which is just now coming to me. So we, in our culture, have a saying of like it's in concrete, meaning it's solid, you can depend on it. And what was written on it, the languages that were written on it, and my theories about that. So there were 8 different languages written on it. It was perfectly symmetrical, and it was actually built in a place near a place called the Center of the World, by the Indians or the Native Americans, indigenous of that area. Um, I'm pretty sure that there are ley lines there that probably reach a lot of places in the world. Um, it would depict the time exactly, and the languages. So one of the first guides on the Guidestones that was read was to reduce the world's population to 500 million, and there's something like 36 billion or 360 billion or some number coded amount of people in the world. So that would mean a lot of people would have to die. So um, I think that that's already, I think the reason why it came down is so that there's no evidence of this magical plan. Because we're starting to, one of the languages was Hindi, I think, what is spoken in India. So, what is spoken in India is one of the languages on the Guidestones. Um, Russian, Chinese, German. I can't remember all 8 of them right now. Um, Feel free to look it up. There's a lot of information. There's a lot of people have done a lot of studies on it. So, um, my theory is it coming down is so that there's no proof of this plan, this world plan. What I'm seeing is like, yeah, Sri Lanka is going through some problems. China is going through some problems. I feel like it was already set in motion many, many, many years back, before now, because it's been proven. You can see it. You can see it in the numbers from what I told you that I've learned about from Gematria. I see it in the language. Okay, so some of the language, Georgia and Guidestones. Okay, so my ultimate theory is this. My ultimate theory is that the Sibyls, the great Sibalias, or the goddesses, where all of our information comes from. I'm finding more and more like factual proof out there, but I think as far as we're concerned on this realm, that there's constantly like this debunking. And one thing that is written and said often is there is nothing new under the sun. And even with the goddess information, and when we start bringing this up to people about the feminine or the number 9, it is still discredited. It is called new agey. It is called woo woo. Nothing is really new. We're just remembering. And so, okay. Okay. My theories is, so we were indigenous. We're from ultimately this land of predominantly darker skin, but I know that there were all different colors. And when we're in the womb, it's darkness. Okay. And that certain, yes, number symbols, languages, sounds, because I even think the iambic pentameter, which is named after a goddess, is a way to set a certain tone and vibration into our minds so that we are actually easier to control, is my theory. So I think that's why singing is so important and music is important, or sounding, because it brings in a different vibration. And other languages also carry their own vibration and probably land on a certain tone so that they can also be more easily programmed, is my theory. So I think the Georgia Guidestones have already started. And then where I think we're at now, and something I think I might have figured out. Because that's what I'm always trying to do. Like, why, I've been saying, why would they do all this stuff to us? Why do they do all this stuff to us? Okay. So the indigenous mothers, or the indigenous goddesses, as we would call them, were so connected to the ether. And I'm going to get to that, because think about the word breathe and the word ether or aether, which comes from a Greek god originally. And so I have a theory about that. And that, where am I going with this? I'm kind of tired, but I'm excited to share this. So bear with me, and I appreciate it. That information was stolen, and they're also starting to see resemblance of things that have been seen in Egypt that originated here in the Americas, that have been seen in Europe that originated here in the Americas. Also, the Hebrew language has been discovered here in the Americas, and there are a lot of biblical references to the land here. And I do have a book, The Bible of the Atlas, which I think is trying to show us. And I also think they are trying to show us with the word breathe, which we'll get to. So one of my theories is about vowels. I had heard before that vowels are actually God's letters, or the God's letters, and that we didn't speak them originally. So certain vowels that we speak specifically in the English language, or letters that we have letter symbols, didn't exist many, many, many millennia ago. And so one of my examples is the goddess. And you remove the O and the E, and it still looks like goddess. It's goddess. Okay. And I was noticing in the Gematria calculator, if you put in words such as, okay, so I took some pictures so that when I was on live, I could pull it up a little more quickly. Because I will say, like, once you start learning about Gematria, it's a lot of research, because you start realizing like birthdays and certain anniversaries and certain days of the year and somebody's name and somebody's birthday. and also the astrological alignments. And then you look at all the other stuff. And so that's why I think the guide stones were actually like a magical energy being put out there, especially where we were all locked down. It just bothers me. Okay. So let's see here. I was looking at words to see what their numerology was with vowels in them and then removed the vowels. So I think live and love is one of them. I see any connections with those. So love spelled out has the English ordinal is 54 and the reversible reduction is 18, and you see that twice in there. It also reduces down to 9. And so LV, this is not the one I wanted to use. It doesn't, there's no numerical, numerological or geometrical match with those. But I found it with Medea and Media. They both, okay. If you remove the vowels, which is MDA, comes down to 18, 9, 63, and 18 again, which, reduces numerologically down to 9. And so does mother. No. I can't find it. See, I even took pictures. Oh, no. Is it war? No. I'm sorry, guys. Okay, moving on. Oh, dog. Maybe dog. Is a 7, 17, 11. There's really no matches here, but I thought it was interesting. Oh, what I did figure out, though, by removing all the vowels is that there are 18 letters in our alphabet if you remove all the vowels. I just found that interesting. I didn't know that. I've never done that. Okay, moving on. Oh, this is what it was. I found it. Swirl and 9, because if you spell out 9, it equates to 5, I think. But if you write 9, obviously it equals 9 and the symbol, but swirl with and without the I reduces to 27, 36, and 18, but the English ordinal is 81. So you see matching numbers, and then 27 and 72. You see matching numbers across the board, except for, no, across the board. So I thought that was interesting because I think that 9 is the number. I've been saying this for a long time. 9 and 0. Okay, moving forward. So I just noticed that with swirl. I didn't notice it. 9 equals 6 if you spell out 9. So then you end up with like 666, which everyone's afraid of. And 5 also reduces to 6 and 3. And I'm going all the way down to the numerical. This is the geometric numbers. So when I say full reduction, I'm talking about you add all of those, you add those numbers together, and the number that those numbers add up to reduces to 9. So when I say reduces to 9, that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that these numbers come up automatically 9. There are other numbers. Okay, so I noticed that about vowels, and so I'm wondering if that was like part of the purpose of it, like to remove, to put vowels in as another way of manipulation. Okay, then I move on to breathing. So I started sharing with you guys about breathing through the back and through your lungs. Through your kidneys, and appendix. And I've been practicing it, not as long as I'd like to, but I've been practicing it just to see what happens. And I definitely, the other day, felt a really strong, like, um, warmth and almost like an electricity in my stomach area, but inside my body, not like in the front. It was a really cool feeling. And I kind of got a download. This is why I mentioned the word breathe earlier. So, ether, we talk about being etheric beings. I heard that so the whole purpose of all of this is to keep us separated from ether, which, if you look up the name ether, which can be spelled with an E or an A, is a Greek god, means um, the upper pure bright air. And it was originally a scientific term for what the 19th century physicists called the fifth element, right? A substance that was said to fill all space and make up all bodies. In modern times, ether has come to be a literary term that refers to the sky. Well, this is what I heard. I heard that we created ether in our bodies. So after the fall, we forgot how to breathe. They knew how to breathe. The originals knew how to breathe. And we would breathe that way through our spiritual chakras, which is our back chakras. We would breathe in through the back and through spirit, bring it down through the front. And we would practice this. I believe this is how we used to be able to float. And it is supposed to create ether. And we would filter ether in our own bodies through our appendix and our tonsils. This is what I heard from the planet. That's what I heard. And then, so I was like, ether, because my theory is all gods are either morphic, meaning they can turn into male or female, or they were originally female and then morphed into male deities to match our patriarchal society. So I did a little research on this deity. It says he is the personification of upper sky and embodies the pure upper air that the gods breathe, as opposed to the normal air breathed by mortals, quote unquote humans. Aether is one of the only Greek deities who is known to change sex constantly. That means he appeared as female, and I actually think originally was female and then became male, because also in the Egyptian writings or hieroglyphs, you'll see Nut. Is that right? Yeah, sky, Nut. Earth is I forgot his name suddenly. But it used to be that Earth was masculine and the sky was feminine. So just throwing that out there. I think that both are feminine. I think that the Earth took on like a masculine energy, maybe to help produce humans, is my theory. Okay. And then Aether is the god of the upper air, the purest, finest air of the gods breathe. Ancient Greeks believed that there are 3 different types of air to breathe, used by different beings. One, the lowest type of air breathed by all underworldly creatures. One was breathed by all regular humans, and another, the third, and the highest air, was breathed by gods and goddesses. So I actually think that, and then also Aether was a ruler in a mythological story, and he is the daughter of the nymph Nyx, related to Hades. I'm sorry, related to Thanos and I can't remember the other deity. Zeus, maybe? Air on Earth was governed by Zeus. No. Yeah. Thanatos as a Thanos. And Hypnos. He is this deity is a primordial god and depicted as the humanoid personification of an element. They just tell us, and then the way you spell breathe, minus the B, you can spell aether with it. I think they are constantly telling us the truth. And if we breathe correctly and the whole world starts producing ether, literally solve everything. Everything is healed. And we can live forever. That's my theory. Okay, that's mostly it. There was something that came to my mind while I was talking before. Okay. And then I've been saying that this is kind of like the spell is to create codependence. And recently we've had the bombing of the Hoover Dam. And one of the narcissistic words that is used by coaches and people who are trying to explain the experience to people who don't quite understand what a narcissistic relationship is, what hoovering is. And, they named a vacuum after Hoover. Why, I feel like these are so now. I think before it was like, oh, okay, a vacuum named after Hoover. But now you're like, wait a minute. There's some literal psychological suction going on there. Like, they just tell us, oh, that was the other one, religion. Okay, so part of the video's name is like, what do we do about it? So this is my theory. My theory is we teach about the cognitive dissonance, that it doesn't make sense that we only see one deity as being the all as far as masculine, because it actually doesn't make sense. It's impossible. And then also by the readings and by the teachings, this is a very violent, unforgiving deity. And then we're put to kind of go to a middleman to be saved. And I think that that's still some part of like trapping us in a certain mindset so that all the rest can be taught to us. And you think about education and what's been pulled out of education, which is music and art, and also calligraphy, or cursive as it was renamed. And now they're putting in critical race theory, which I don't think really makes any sense. I don't. And why not heal? And then also, I did a video not so long ago talking about the transgender and a trans agenda. And I am like, oh my gosh, like I said, I don't watch regular TV and I don't watch the news. But now that things have like caught up onto things like YouTube or other platforms of watching movies or videos, I'm kind of floored, because I still look at it as a way to usurp the feminine energy. If we're crediting and giving awards to people who were born differently and decided to make a change and identify differently, like, why are we still not honoring brown people or people who have also identified and gone through things? I think it's kind of not fair to now address men as also being women when we still haven't actually given women their true like upliftment and support, I think. And kind of like, I'm not even going to go there. So I'm not even going to go there. Um, so that's my theory. My theory is like teaching about the goddess and the possibility that that's not even the possibility. The natural realization that that is the most logical thing, that outside of numbers, which we had to have been taught, someone had to teach us about numbers for us to even say God is numbers. Who taught us that? And then if you break down the word theories, I thought this was fun. You have Theo, which is supposed to mean like God, or it could be like a lion, Leo. Theory, the or rise, like rises. God rises. Theories are what we need, I think. Just ways to look at things differently. Um, I was so excited to share this. I feel like this wasn't the best video, but it doesn't have to be. It's mostly about like just kind of putting out that information that um, we are constantly being manipulated. And I do think it's in our language. And I've even thought about like what they said in the guide stones to create a new language, one language. And I think that's kind of trippy because isn't this all based off of like God got pissed off when we all did speak one language? I don't know. I find it all confusing. Um, so the breath work, I mean, more about the goddess. There's just so much I think relates back to her languages, names like Phoenician, the Cabal, Sabalia, Kabalia. These are all names in the Encyclopedia of Spirits. Let's just have some fun real quick. Okay. Though I don't have absolute copyright rights to read out of this book, I am using the constitutional rights of America, which is um, the Share Act, meaning sharing education. Okay, and I do say that this is for entertainment purposes. So, and I learned this book by watching another um, truth teller on YouTube, Priestess Aset Amun. If you want to check her out, she does a lot of magical work. Um, you want to check her out? I'm gonna say it's pretty. She has a lot of information. Okay, so we're gonna look up Civil or Somalia, just for fun. Bye, Mark. Thanks for there. Thanks for hanging out. Actually, no one's watching the live right now, and that's okay because mostly I do the live so I can post them right up without having to wait for a while, as long as YouTube doesn't, censor me. Okay, Sibylla. And I do believe there are two. Nope, just the one. Sibylla on page 908, if you have it. Also known as Sibylla or Sibylla or Sibylla. And they spell it with the two L's and IA at the end, kind of like Illuminati. And Sibyl, Sibyllla. So let's just remind you real quickly that most people think of the name Sybil and think of a movie that came out quite a long time ago about a woman who had a whole bunch of different personalities and was basically crazy, is the story. So again, it's just demonizing. Okay. According to Italian, and it comes from Italy. But there are other stories that come from other places, and I think it actually goes all the way back to here. However, that will come out. According to the Italian legend, after vanishing from Rome, the Cumaean Sibyl took refuge in a cavern in the Apennines. Apennines? Apennines. Interesting. Her underground paradise was reached through a grotto filled with snakes in a mountain of Norcia, an Italian region renowned for witches and mushrooms. What? She's allegedly still in this cavern, teaching the magical arts to those who wish to learn. See, also simple. I thought I did. Here's that. I'm going the wrong way. Am I? No. It's not in here. Did they do that? Did they actually say see also, but it's not in here? Yeah, because wouldn't it be? Yeah. Come on now. Oh, no. I'm going the wrong way. Goodness sake, please. Okay. See also Sibyl. We'll check that out too. A Christian rendition of Sibelia's legend acknowledges her powers of prophecy, but claims that the Sibyl did not enter her cave voluntarily, but was instead locked in as a punishment for her arrogance in believing that she, not the Virgin Mary, was destined to bear the Messiah. It's possible that this refers to now suppressed claims the Sibyl would bear a holy child who would become a savior. Because I think it's supposed to be a female, and the Messiah means the messenger. And I think they created the messenger for us to be locked in magic that they know how to do and we do not. And we're so trusting, like, this is what God wants. It's all magic. It's all magic. And they teach us, good and evil, but they're doing evil. Okay. This is no fairy tale. A real life shrine, the ridge of the Sibillini, once existed below Mount Vitor during the 15th century. Visitors from throughout Europe traveled to Norcia to see the cave. As her acclaim and reputation grew, the ancient prophetess transformed into a goddess of witches. Sibylla, her craft name, allegedly presides over witches' flight and witches' balls. I do giggle a little. By the end of the 15th century, the church had a standing order to excommunicate anyone who made the pilgrimage to Sibylla's shrine. On the other hand, those who defend the decree and visited were reportedly blessed by Sibylla with a lifetime of joy. Should you stay in Sibylla's cavern for over a year, you would allegedly never be able to leave. But on the plus side, you would retain eternal, youthful living amid abundance and revelry in a witch's paradise. Does that sound evil? That does not sound evil. I mean, maybe that you can't leave, but sounds like you wouldn't want to. Of course, those are the positive legends. Witch goddesses usually weren't permitted such good press, and so other stories exist too, although even these may be interpreted in various ways. Sibylla sprouts a snake's tail every Saturday. Maybe like she dances on the Saturday of the week or certain days of the week, according to the moon, probably. Oh, yeah, and that's the other thing. If you are interested in numbers and the magic of the moon and the sun, you might want to check out a Hebrew calendar. That's pretty informative. And there are numbers that match with all the stuff that's going on today as well. Okay, back to this. The legendary wandering Jew finally, interesting, finally settled down, transformed into a snake, and serves as Sibylla's door guardian. That's interesting. That's a plant. Why are they? Okay, that's a whole nother. It's a whole nother rabbit hole to go down. At night, all the inhabitants of Sibylla's paradise turn into snakes. To gain admission to Sibylla's cave, one must copulate with snakes. Come on, people. Christian legends describe Sibylla as the ancestors of all witches, magicians, and occultants. You hear that? Christian legend describes Sibylla as the ancestress of all witches, magicians, and occultists. And they call that bad, but that means that that's where they got all the information from that they're using against us, which I've been saying forever. Okay. Then spirit allies are Diana, Fata Morgana, sometimes resides with Sibylla. Of course, that's so cool. The three may be venerated together. They're African or European deities that share very similar legends. All right, I'm going to do Sybil. I'll do Sybil next video. How about that? Because that's what this is going to be about. It's just like really educating as to all the relations to the Bible, to the Sybil Bible, as I call it. Yeah, the Cumaean Sybil. There's Sybil, and then there's the Cumaean Sybil. And we'll talk about that next time. It's pretty deep. I have also the Sibyls by Mama Zogbe, and also the Papa Rule, which talks about how they changed the way we talked. All right, but that's enough for today. But I am going to share something with you guys before I part. I'm going to start this video with this, but so I wrote this back in 2001, about a week or two before September 11th. And I wrote it mostly because I was mad at people where I was working. Like, I really didn't like them, and it bothered me that I didn't like them because I had no good reason not to like them. And I didn't really know anything about them. But once I learned more about their culture, I understood like why it rubbed me the wrong way, because our culture kind of rubs them the wrong way. Anyhow, a spell cast by demons so splendid and fine that the holy forgot and the innocent fell blind. Dispensed among followers unknown to the spell, a doomsday, a matrix, or some kind of hell. They tranced so devotedly from work, school, and plans that the beautiful and artistic became somewhat bland. A block or a wall, all people did conform to doing what they were told, for this was the norm. The spell had been cast, no one was aware that the demons were gone, but their evil still there. This is literally what we're living. And then, a week after that, 9/11 happened. I wrote about that too, but that's the thing. I wrote a bunch of stuff even back then. One of the numbers, something 300 people in the planes, 1,000 World Trade Centers, September 11th. I even wrote the numbers. I had no idea. 1/3%. This was the news because I was still watching the news. Well, I was watching the news, especially after that. I mean, of course. And that's the other thing. Like, they forced you to watch the news. Okay. That's enough for today. Thanks for watching, listening, sharing, subscribing. And please leave any comments. And I will see you on the next video when I do. A little sound. care of yourselves. Stay well.